Hey, everybody. Good evening. And yeah, good evening. And maybe if you're watching this on the replay, it could be morning, it could be afternoon. I just want to say welcome to another conversation about politics, the general election that's coming up and on November the 5th, which is like 69 days away or something like that. I'm excited today to have a guest with me, a very special guest, my daughter, aka baby girl.
Justice.
And y'all, today is her 21st birthday. So I want everybody to say happy 21.
Thank you.
Today is literally her birthday today. And so I'm excited. She said, Mom, can I go on your broadcast? And I said, of course, we're gonna do this. And so I'm excited that she's here joining me today on her birthday. I'm so glad she's here with me on her birthday. Anyway, so the purpose of this platform, as I say, every Thursday night at 8 p.m., and subscribe to this channel if you haven't yet, so that you can get notifications when we go live. But the purpose of this platform is to encourage you to vote through the lens of holiness and truth when you head to the polls on November the 5th. Some of you might be voting early. And so it's really important for you to do your due diligence and make sure that you know how you're going to cast your vote through the lens of truth and holiness. I'm a former federal lobbyist, and I've seen the inner workings of Congress, the inner workings of the political system. I consider myself a politico, and a lot of us are kind of really interested in what's happening in politics today. A lot of us more at the federal level, but we would encourage all of you to get busy at the local and state level too. So before we get started, and I'm gonna ask my daughter a number of questions. She is part of Gen Z, um, and that's a generation that essentially is between the ages of, I believe, I don't know, maybe 19 to 30 or something like that. I could be wrong. But she's a part of that generation. So if you have kids that are in college, they graduated from college recently, maybe they are just starting college. Those are young people that are part of Gen Z. But before we get started, I have a surprise for my daughter because it's her birthday.
What?
Yeah, I just wanted to give you a little something, something before we get started. I hope you like it.
Okay. I didn't know this was happening, you guys.
Yes.
My cousins.
Cuzzy Wuzzies.
Lady J, you are a light that shines so bright. You are the light of the world and the salt of the earth. The world can never dim your light. Love your family. Thank you.
Oh,
This
you're
is so
welcome. That's
cute.
from you, Mr. Cedric.
Thank you, guys, the parents.
All right, so you want to show it? It's a picture of her and her cousins.
My cousins, who I love so very much.
Yay! Okay.
Thanks, Mom.
Oh, so Gen Z is 1997 through 2012. Thank you, Mom. So now we know the Gen Z generation. All right, so you got your phone?
Yes,
We're going to get started. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to get started by asking Justice just to basically tell her a little bit about who she is, and so that you can get some perspective on her life.
Yeah, so I was originally born in Washington, D.C. I moved to California and lived there for a few years till I was about 9 or 10.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I moved to D.C. I went to a number of schools. I went to public schools. I went to public charter schools. I've been to private schools, private boarding schools. I've been to all types of different schools, all types of different, with people that had all types of different backgrounds. And so, yeah, I've lived in DC and I've been living in Virginia since 12th grade, 11th grade.
Yeah, 11th grade.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Yeah. Awesome. So what is a future? Where do you see your future basically? Like what's something that you're thinking about doing?
Oh, yeah. So I am currently in school. I want to be a lawyer in the future. I'm not sure exactly what kind of lawyer, but I do like it when people's voices are heard. And I want to be somebody who is like, you know, I want to help people get their voices heard. Yeah. So that's what I want to do.
Yeah. Why are you passionate about that part? Just real quick.
Because I hate it when I just don't like, I think the justice system is a hot mess. So if there's any way that I can learn more about it and, like you said, advocate for people in life, throughout life, then yeah, I want to be able to do that.
Awesome. I love that. You weren't named justice for nothing. So. All right. So let's talk about politics and policy a little bit, because that's the purpose of this platform. And for a young person who is 21 years of age, you've probably had a couple of times to vote, right? You probably voted in maybe a general election, or maybe not. But you've voted at least 1 or 2 times nationally and probably locally. But what are some of the most important issues that you care about in society today? You talked a little bit about that a minute ago. What other things are important to
you? So as of right now, the things that are most important to me in society, as my generation and coming up and now becoming an adult and being in, making money. One of the things that I see a lot of people my age or even older than me talk about is the fact that nobody's able to buy a house. Like, we look at our parents or our grandparents back in the day and we're like, dang, like, y'all were able to buy houses at a young age, and we're just not able to do that anymore. And I don't know if it's because of inflation or if it's because of minimum wage now is crazy. Even like so many people my age are discouraged from going to college, because when you get out of college, you're going to be getting paid the exact same thing that people get paid when they don't go to college. So it's like, it's just pretty discouraging. So yeah, that's one thing that I'm passionate about right now.
Being able to buy a home, have a good paying job,
right?
Not have to pay rent anymore. That makes sense.
Yeah,
that makes sense. Inflation is real right now. I think COVID played a role in that, and also interest rates are really high. So for people that want to buy homes right now, it's hard for them unless they kind of wait out the market. But I understand those concerns. When you graduate from college, you kind of expect that after that, because you made such an investment of time and money,
that you're going to be making something that was worth the investment.
Boom. Makes sense. All right. So that's helpful. So have you voted before? What was that experience like when you went to the polls?
I have voted before. It was a local election because I had actually had a conversation with somebody, I don't remember who, but we were talking about like banned books in our community and how they were banning like certain books in schools, even high schools. What's that author's name? She wrote the
Toni
book.
Morrison?
Thank you. They were banning a lot of Toni Morrison books, and I was feeling strongly about that. And I was, of the voting age, so I was like, let me go vote. So when I went to the poll, I didn't really do a lot of research beforehand, and I know how important research is. And I also know how important voting at the local level is, not just for the president, because voting at state level and local level is really going to shape how your community is and what's going on in the school system and everything that's local level. So I went to the poll. I did like a little bit of research beforehand. And I remember going there and they had like a blue sheet. There were people standing outside. Somebody handed me a blue sheet and somebody handed me a red sheet, red for Republican, blue for Democrat. And I didn't really know who I was going to vote for. So I just voted for the people on the sheet. I wasn't, well, those were the candidates that were available. But
Right.
I took the red sheet and I was like, okay, well, my mom would be voting this way, so I'll vote that way. Like, I wasn't able to do a whole lot of research beforehand. So, yeah, that was my
That's
voting
honest.
experience.
That's very honest. Yeah, I mean, that often is, most people do not take the time to do their research. And that's one of the things that we talk about a lot on this platform is do your research. And, we recognize it takes time, but at the end of the day, if you're not happy with, for example, banned books, if you're not happy with what's happening in the school system, you got to do your research and figure out, well, what's been taking place in the past and what's going to be coming up in the future based on some of the policy proposals that people have in place. So,
yeah, and I don't even know if I helped that at all. I don't know who was banning the books.
see. She's like, I'm against banning books, but I don't know if it was the red or if it was the blue. Right.
So.
Right. Understandable. Yeah, typically that happens on the
Republican side, I figured.
Yeah. But, there's so many issues under that umbrella, and some of those books probably need to be banned.
Yeah.
But that, like a lot of things, can be kind of a slippery slope, particularly if, you don't really understand where it comes from. And so that is a really good, interesting share.
Thanks.
Yeah. So what is your view of politicians as we start to pivot more towards like policy conversation things? What's your view of politicians?
I don't trust them. I think that there's a lot of things, and I think there's a lot of things behind the scenes that we don't know about. And it's hard to trust the government, and it's hard to trust politicians when we constantly hear about them lying and doing crazy stuff. Like, it's hard. It's hard to trust politicians. So, yeah, that's my view. It's kind of scary how politicians are able to make so many decisions, and a lot of it has to do with just like weird things that are happening under the table or like behind closed doors. So
Yeah,
I feel like a lot of people in my generations don't trust politicians.
Do you know any politicians?
I know, like personally.
Yeah, personally. Do you have any relationships with any?
No.
Do you think if you did that would maybe increase your trust in their role in society, if you knew any personally?
Yeah, probably if I knew them and I trusted them. Yes.
Knew them and trusted them.
Yeah, but if I just knew them and they were kind of like sketchy, I wouldn't trust. That wouldn't help.
Sure. No, that's good. That's I mean, it's the reality is most of what we see in the news is what we believe.
Yeah.
A lot of what we see on social media and a lot of what we see in the news is what we believe. And so if politicians are cast in a certain light, then yeah, people aren't going to trust them.
Yeah.
But also there is a strong financial component to what happens in American society.
Yep.
And so if politicians have certain demands placed on them by donors or by, people that are sponsoring their campaigns,
yeah,
a lot of that too influences what they vote on or what they are advocating for and the types of bills they're passing. As a lobbyist, almost $1 billion is spent every quarter lobbying the federal government. And that is a lot of money. And so that has a strong influence in how policy is made. And so I think a lot of people probably feel that politicians go in it with the right reasons, right? Because they care about democracy, they love America, but money talks. So I appreciate you sharing that perspective. Okay, so next, a few questions left. Isn't she amazing? Oh my gosh, she's doing. She's like, she should do this for real, like have your own podcast. Okay. So the next question is, who and what has influenced the way that you view society and the way that you view politics today?
Well, society has influenced how I
Right.
view politics today, who and what society and my family.
Mm.
So like society, what you see on social media, what you see on TV, influences some of what I think. And then also my family and more of the religious aspect, because you don't see a lot of that in social media and
Mm.
TV and on the news. You don't see that aspect a lot because, the separation between church and state and all of that stuff. So my family really gives me a Christian perspective on politics and what's going on in today's world.
Mhm.
Um, and society kind of gives me what's the word?
I could think of a few words,
Right.
but I want you to come up with the word. Uh,
Like, what's the word when it's like
muddied
of
or
the world?
a worldly perspective. I was thinking jaded,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, they secular. Thank you. Thank you.
Secular. Look
Thank
at
you.
that
That was
help
the
in the
word I was
chat.
looking
Look at all
at.
this help we have. Oh,
Yes, the
that's
secular aspect
yes.
of what's going on in society, and politics.
Thanks, y'all. We got so much help.
Right.
All right. So I want to talk about that. I want to unpack that a minute
Okay.
because so most people are on TikTok. Like I don't know if you guys have TikTok, but so many people live on TikTok. Um, if y'all were to look at your productivity app on the iPhone, I don't know how many hours it would say that you spend on TikTok every day, but many people live on TikTok. And the interesting thing, you're talking about how social media influences people. TikTok is very biased towards certain content. I mean, I've
Yeah.
posted content on there about, the gender identity confusion issue, and some of my videos have been blocked, and I almost got kicked off of TikTok.
Mhm.
And some other things that deal with, I wouldn't even say religion, but faith
Mhm.
related issues. And so, if social media has a particular slant, then wouldn't you think a lot of people that are on social media would probably cater to that slant? Because, I mean,
Oh yeah.
we're on our devices 6.5 hours a day, according to research.
Mm-hmm.
6.5 hours of screen time.
Yeah.
And so if we're on our devices for 6.5 hours, then that is really going to have an influence on what impacts our mind.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So are you a TikToker?
I am a TikToker.
Do you post on TikTok or do you?
I don't post on TikTok.
Okay.
I just consume.
And what has mommy always told you?
Produce, not consume.
Okay. Next question.
Mm.
So these two questions really are inspired by my dad, because I remember having a conversation with my dad. I think we were in Claremont. And, I have always been somebody that is really, a lot of my young adult life was looking for my identity. And so I pledged to sorority. I was part of the National Council of Negro Women, and all of those organizations were really founded. I'd say both of those organizations were founded out of good principles. They wanted to advocate for the community, the Black community. But I remember my dad said something like this, and Dad, I know you're watching, so you can correct me if I'm wrong, but it was something along the lines of, are you, do you consider yourself a Christian or do you consider yourself Black? Like, which one do you weigh more heavily? And I think my response was, well, I consider myself a Black Christian. And I mean, the fact of the matter is live in a society where we are labeled by our race, right? But truly, where we place the weight of our lives matters. And in that stage of my life, I consider myself a Black Christian. And I would say in this stage of my life, I am a Christian who happens to be Black in America.
Right.
And so we're, prioritizing those is really key. And again, I learned that from my dad and a lot of other things of where do you place your priorities? And so my question to you is, I split this up because I know that young people your age probably view things this way, but do you feel like being a Christian in America matters for how you vote?
Oh, absolutely. So what you tell me, don't vote for the person, vote for policy.
Yeah.
So like being a Christian definitely matters in how you vote, because you want to vote in a way that is for your morals and not just for being Black. Is that just okay? Yeah. So
yeah, or any other identity.
right. Yeah, absolutely. It's really just society, as a Christian, society isn't really something that you should, I mean, you need to take it into consideration, but you also you more heavily need to take into consideration your religion and your faith.
And why do you say that?
Well, because you're not gonna be here forever.
Right.
Like, and you want to make the best decisions for your religion while you're here. Like, but on the Black part of it though, I feel like that has more to do with pride. Like about like voting for like Black things and all of that stuff, because you could literally ignore all of that and still be a Black person in America who's a Christian, as in ignore all of the racial tensions and all of that stuff and still vote for what you believe in.
So how do you ignore racial, like how would one, particularly who is Black, how would you ignore those racial tensions that happen in society, and sometimes they happen to you?
I mean, obviously, you can get upset about things, but I feel like the pride comes in with how you respond and how you react, and how you have to realize that you have to put your religion over how you feel in that moment, because all of it is earthly. Yeah, which is hard.
That part.
Even for me, like, it's hard. It's very hard. But you have to grow and learn every day.
That's so good. That's good.
Yeah.
That's really good. Yeah, I think there is Black pride. We see a lot of that today. But I also, as I've talked about in other videos, Black pride can be a crutch. And it also, in many respects, can be an idol, where we are putting so much emphasis in Blackness that we ignore a lot of the issues that are happening in society today, just because, if you're pro-Black and you see all the Blacks going one way, then I'm going to be with the Blacks because I'm Black. But there are implications for the rest of your life.
Right. And you think that you're doing what's best for your people, but you're really not.
That part. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was the end of my questions with the birthday girl. But I really hope that you all gleaned something from today's conversation. I mean, a few of my takeaways are that family and culture have a significant influence on your life. And that's true for me.
Like most kids my age, even if they're even voting, like if their parents don't vote, they're probably not going to vote. Whoever their parents vote for, they're most likely going to vote for whoever their parents are voting for. Like how I did when I was at the local election, didn't do much research, but I was like, well, I know my mom would vote this way, so I'm going to vote that way. So yeah, just if anybody young out there is watching, do your own research.
I was going to ask if you had any parting thoughts. That's a good one. Do your own research. And one way that you can do the research is by starting by looking at the policy positions. So go to Democrats.org if you haven't done that yet, and you'll see their policy platform for 2024, and go to GOP.gov. And so those are the policy priorities that they are promoting at the federal level. And oftentimes, obviously, that trickles down to the state and local election. But if you have, some of you are voting for governor in your states, you need to research these governors. Some may be incumbents and they're asking for re-election. Well, what have they done over the past 4 years? And so do your due diligence, do your research. It's going to take time. Do 30 minutes of research a week because you're not going to discover everything in just in a rush right before the election. And so I just want to say thank you so much, Justice the Giant, for joining me on today's live broadcast. If you want to see more of her, let her know. Just add it in the comments, and maybe, who knows, maybe she'll start doing her own broadcasting soon.
Maybe.
This has been a treat. Thank you all so much for joining. Share this broadcast with your children, with your children's children. Maybe there's something that they agree with, or maybe there's something that they can learn and glean from today.
Yeah. Or ask them some of the questions that my mom asked me, just to get some insight on what's going on in their brain if they're of the voting age.
Even if they're not.
Yeah, that's true. Even if they're not.
That's a great suggestion. I love that. Awesome. Well, until next time, God bless you all. Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern Time is when we talk about politics through the lens of truth and holiness. So again, I encourage you to share this broadcast. Take care. God bless.
Bye.